What could be the reason behind the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370? And what do we know about it? Let's find out in today's episode of Mysteries. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe so you can be notified whenever we post a new video. You can also show your support by liking this video. Now let's get started. But despite an extensive underwater search covering an area of more than 120,000 square kilometers, no debris from the plane has ever been found. This leads us to ask, where is the plane? Did it crash or is it still flying somewhere? This theory is supported by the fact that the plane was still in the air at 1:25 a.m. when it stopped transmitting data to satellites. This theory is supported by the fact that the plane was modern and well maintained, and again, there was no indication of technical problems before it disappeared. And while the Malaysian authorities are still searching for the plane, the families of the passengers are growing impatient. They want answers, and they want them now. But the truth is that without any physical evidence, it is impossible to say definitively what happened to MH370. However, this theory does not explain why the plane's transponder was turned off or why the pilots did not issue a distress call. This theory is based on the fact that the plane's transponder was turned off, suggesting that someone on board had disabled the plane's electronic systems. Despite extensive searches, no debris from the plane has ever been found and no wreckage has ever been located in the search area. We would love to hear what you have to say. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. While the most likely explanation is that the plane crashed into the ocean, there are other theories that cannot be ruled out. It is possible that the plane was deliberately flown into the ocean by the pilot or that it was lost due to a technical malfunction. However, without any physical evidence, it is impossible to say definitively what happened to MH370. As the investigation continues, we can only hope that the truth will eventually come to light. However, there is no evidence that anyone on board had the knowledge or ability to do so. Additionally, the plane's route took it over a military base in the Maldives, which raised speculation that the plane may have been hijacked and flown to a secret location. Take care. However, the Maldivian government denied this theory, stating that there had been no unusual activity at the military base. Furthermore, the plane would have needed a lot of fuel to reach such a faraway location, and there is no evidence that it had enough fuel to do so. This theory is based on the fact that the plane disappeared over the Indian Ocean, an area known to be used by submarines from various countries, including China and Russia. However, there is no evidence that either country was conducting military exercises in the area at the time of the disappearance or that a missile was fired at the plane. On March 8, 2014, the world was thrown into confusion when the Boeing 777-200ER of Malaysia Airlines, which took off from Kuala Lumpur at 12:41 a.m. local time, was reported missing. After failing to make contact with Sabang Air Traffic Control Tower at 1:22 a.m., and the pilot had been cleared to descend to 35,000 feet for the balance of the flight. One of the most outlandish is that the plane was abducted by aliens. Proponents of this theory point to the fact that the plane's disappearance was so mysterious that it must have been the work of extraterrestrials. However, there is absolutely no evidence to support this claim, and it is almost certainly just a hoax. Then there was a change in the flight path from its original one as recorded in the flight plan, deviating 10 degrees to the right and climbing to a higher altitude than permitted without clearance. At 1:21 a.m., a satellite communication was established between the aircraft and a ground station over the Indian Ocean west of Perth, Australia. The last communication with the plane occurred at 1:25 a.m. There were 239 people on board, and since then there have been several theories trying to explain why the aircraft went missing. But up until today, nobody knows exactly what happened to the plane. This theory is supported by the fact that the last communication with the plane was over the Indian Ocean, and the plane had enough fuel to stay airborne for several hours after it turned off its transponder and descended to 10,000 feet. However, this theory doesn't explain why the plane did not send out any distress signals before it allegedly crashed. Additionally, No debris from the plane has ever been found and no wreckage has ever been located in the search area, which would have been visible on satellite images if it had been there. Also, the airline said that the pilots of MH370 had not reported any technical problems before the plane disappeared. All of these facts raise doubts about the plane crashing into the ocean. What we do know is that Flight MH370 had made contact with Hanoi ATC at 1:19 a.m. A search was immediately launched by Malaysia with the assistance of neighboring countries and international organizations. One of the most popular theories about the disappearance of MH370 is that it crashed into the southern Indian Ocean, and the jet's wreckage lies somewhere on the ocean floor. Another popular theory is that MH370 was deliberately flown into the ocean by the pilot. A third theory is that MH370 was lost due to a technical malfunction. As you can see, each of these theories has its own set of supporters and detractors, but that's not all. In addition to these theories, there have been many others proposed over the years. There is also a theory that the plane was shot down by a missile fired from a submarine. Another theory is that the plane was brought down by a remote-controlled device. In conclusion, the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 remains one of the greatest mysteries of our time. Now it's time to make your voice heard. Comment below with your thoughts about this case. And here's another interesting topic that might catch your curiosity.